Take your seats. Order. Order, members. Order. I will order that matter to be stayed. Let me hear Millie Odhiambo's point of order. Order. Millie Odhiambo, I'll hear your point of order. Order. I will hear Millie Odhiambo's point of order. 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 Honorable members, take your seats. Millie Odhiambo.
Thank you, honorable members.
Order. Member for Kilifi. Honorable Millie Odhiambo, take the floor. Millie Odhiambo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker.
Order. Millie Odhiambo, take the floor. Order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker.
Order.
Mr. Speaker, I rise under Standing Order 19A and 20. Mr. Speaker.
Hold on, Millie. Honorable members, can we hear Millie Odhiambo? Order, Angela. Order. 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 Honorable Gertrude Mbeyu and those who are conducting themselves like you. Honorable Mawade, the excitement does not preclude the application of standing orders. And if I see you getting rowdy again, I'll request you to leave the chamber. Millie Odhiambo. Order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I stand under Standing Order 19A and Standing Order 20. Mr. Speaker, and in furtherance of a recent decision by the High Court HTC number E202 of 2023, Kenneth Njagi Njiru and 11 others versus the National Assembly of Kenya and others. Mr. Speaker, I will not go to the demerits and merits of that matter. I will go to what the court concluded, which is that the Azimio side is the majority. And based on that, Mr. Speaker, again, because I've said I'm not going to the merits and demerits of that decision, Mr. Speaker, I want to just indicate that I have therefore, as the majority party whip of Azimio, today handed over to your office a copy of that decision of the High Court with a letter that we are giving you our, according to the standing orders, our majority leader as Honorable Junet Mohammed and Honorable Robert Mbui. Mr. Speaker, following the standing orders, Honorable Junet will thereafter then communicate me officially as the minority whip, going by what the standing orders, but a majority whip. Majority. Mr. Speaker, I also stand under Standing Order 90 and had actually consulted you about this. And Mr. Speaker, if you look at the judgment of that court, the court actually infer that because of the position you hold as Speaker and also as Chairman of your party, Mr. Speaker, it is not as party leader of your party. Mr. Speaker, it is not possible for you, to be fair, you are going to be conflicted when you are conducting the matters of this House. Mr. Speaker, I therefore humbly request you to step down and mandate Honorable Gladys Boschole to take over in discharging the functions as the Speaker because of your conflict of interest. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker.
Order. Order.
Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in concluding, Mr. Speaker, because I said I'm not going to go to the merits and demerits of the matter, in concluding, I want to urge that as a parliament, we need to obey court rulings and decisions, even when we don't agree with them. And Mr. Speaker, I also just want to indicate that you can see my two colleagues are standing next to me. My advice to them in future is to follow a philosophy from my community which says, telo ikao, telo kumingato. So next time they should do what Honorable Ruku did. Jump if you have to, but take your position the way Honorable Millie has done.
Is that part of your point of order?
No. Mr. Speaker, I said as an obiter. And Mr. Speaker, I would also just want to say, very finally, also as an obiter, Mr. Speaker, people are also talking about broad-based. Again, I'm very careful. I'm saying this as an obiter. It's not my substantive argument. Mr. Speaker, people talk of broad-based. Yeah, and even when you look at the decisions of the arguments of the court, they keep making reference to the de jure and the de facto. And many things may have changed over time. And Mr. Speaker, I'd want to say that actually, if you look at this side of the House today, we are seeing broad, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, if we want to see good faith, we want to see if it is also based. It is broad. But based, whether it is based will depend on the decision going forward. Otherwise, we will be told by the court it is hot air, this broad base is hot air, wild goose chase, and all those other things, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move.
Order, members. Order, members. Maintain your silence. Millie Odhiambo has raised 2 points. One I'll dispose of very quickly, and the other I will allow the House some latitude. As to whether...
Don't be sad, go get your nails done. Don't be sad, go get your nails done. Don't be sad, go get your nails done. Don't be sad.
I'll dispose it of as follows. One, there's no motion before the...
So I just got my nails done, and honestly, I am so upset. I am furious. And understand why kungekho ring on this finger. So I just got my nails done, and honestly, I am so upset. I am furious. And understand why kungekho ring on this finger.
Requires the speaker to do what you are saying. More particularly, the final findings of that judgment, which as a distinguished learned friend, we had an opportunity to read through together today. That judgment does not cast aspersions on the speaker presiding on such proceedings. Number three, in similar situations, in the 10th Parliament, a motion was brought to this House by the then member for Kibwezi, the Honorable Patrick Musimba, to discuss the conduct and the possible vacation of office by Speaker Muturi as he then was. Speaker Muturi presided over the debate and the vote was taken and the motion went the way it did. Number 4, in the 7th Parliament, when I was a fresher in this House, the Honorable James Orengo, or one of the then Ford Kenya members, brought a motion to discuss the conduct and character of the then Speaker, Francis Xavier Kausai Olekaparo. Kausai Olekaparo presided over the proceedings. The motion was debated and put to a vote, and it went the way it did. I'm sure you know that neither Muturi nor Kapara left office on the basis of any motion. Number 4. Number 5, you as truly as your speaker does not debate, does not vote. I hold a position of honor to preside over your proceedings. Anybody who wants to say anything about this judgment, I'll give you an opportunity. And it's finally going to be yours truly to give you a ruling on the matter. It must also be made very clear as we listen to each other that neither the court nor any authority outside this chamber, and senior lawyers like Otiendo Molo should know this, neither the court nor any other authority outside this chamber can make declarations that affect the conduct of business here except yourselves by voting and by the speaker giving you rulings. Number 7, we sit here as a quasi-judicial body. And as a quasi-judicial body, I will listen to you, and I assure you, I'll give you a fair finding. It is like going to court and telling a judge that because the lawyer appearing before him was his classmate, he will not be fair. That has no foundation in law or in fact. So I'll open up and hear those who want to have similar points of order, as Millie Odhiambo has raised, on the judgment. And I want also to caution you members that your standing orders do not allow you to discuss the person or character of any judge unless you have brought a special motion to discuss that judge. You can analyze the judgment, you can agree with it, you can disagree with it, you can qualify it, you can do whatever you want, but don't disparage or discuss the character of any judge without a special motion as is provided for in our standing orders. Honorable Millie Odhiambo, that is my direction. Thank you. Yes, Wanjala, what's your point of order? Give him the mic.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you for the first clarification, which we have humbly understood and agreed with. But Mr. Speaker, you have left out the second issue about the majority leader in the House.
Order, Angela. That is exactly the issue that Millie raised. That she has written to the Speaker. Yes, I've received the letter. I'll analyze it. I have given you an opportunity to speak to her point of order or any other point of order. Yes. Yes, Junaid Mohammed.
Mr. Speaker, first I want to say today that I am privileged to speak from the seat of the majority leader. Because, Mr. Speaker, even when I sat on the seat, it is very warm, Mr. Speaker, unlike mine, which was very cold, Mr. Speaker. I didn't know the seats of Parliament have different warmth, Mr. Speaker. But, Mr. Speaker, I don't foresee myself leaving this seat anytime soon. I don't see myself leaving this one anytime. But having said, Mr. Speaker, as you are aware and as you have alluded to, Mr. Speaker, there is a court ruling. A ruling of court of consisting of 3-judge bench, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, a court ruling has only got 2 decisions, Mr. Speaker. There is no third way about it. One is to obey it, and secondly, if you have any avenue of appeal, you exercise that right of appeal, Mr. Speaker. There is no third way about it, Mr. Speaker. And the court ruling, what we went as Azimio after the election, after your decision here, Mr. Speaker, what took us to court was for the court to interpret for us the constitutionality of your decision on who is the majority party and who's the minority party in this house, Mr. Speaker. And the issue of the Speaker came in as obiter, Mr. Speaker. But what took us to court, we wanted to know, because when we arrived here after the election, we arrived here knowing very well that we are the majority party, Mr. Speaker, and we are the numbers. But midway, we ended up losing numbers through your ruling, Mr. Speaker. And that is what took us to court, to ascertain whether we are the majority and whether we are the minority. And luckily, the court has made its ruling, albeit late, Mr. Speaker. We expected this ruling much, much earlier than this time, Mr. Speaker. But it is better late than never. The decision arrived, and the decision has said that the Azimio party is the majority party in Parliament, Mr. Speaker. And I so happen to be the minority leader as of now, Mr. Speaker. So today afternoon, I just switched seats and I took over the role of majority leader, Mr. Speaker. And I am capable of doing that work, Mr. Speaker. I have the capacity, I have the qualifications, I have the capabilities, I have the numbers in the House, Mr. Speaker, to lead, Mr. Speaker. I have everything what it takes, Mr. Speaker, to be the majority leader of this House, Mr. Speaker. But, Mr. Speaker, the issue that we need to exercise, to analyze, Mr. Speaker, is that, Mr. Speaker, I want to say this. Mr. Speaker, court rulings are very important, Mr. Speaker. You remember after the election, we disputed the result of the election. We ended up filing a court case in the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court pronounced itself that we did not win the election, and the other party won the election, and we abided by it, and we respected the court ruling, Mr. Speaker. This court ruling also must be respected, Mr. Speaker, because it's not like any other court ruling, Mr. Speaker. It's a ruling of the Court of the Republic of Kenya, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this ruling cannot be taken jokingly, Mr. Speaker. When I went through it last evening, Mr. Speaker, these judges are raising very serious fundamental issues. They are raising issues relating to violation of the Constitution, Mr. Speaker. And you remember we impeached someone here because he violated the Constitution, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, if this matter is not addressed, we are going to have a constitutional crisis in this country, Mr. Speaker. So for that reason, Mr. Speaker, jurisdictions all over the world and democracies all over the world that we borrowed from, even this presidential system that we are running today, that is running in this country, Mr. Speaker. In the United States, there are times when the executive is from the Republican Party and the House is ruled by the Democratic Party, and life goes on. It doesn't matter that we are going to oppose everything that the government wants to do. If government brings here bills and policies that are of benefit to the country, we will support it, Mr. Speaker. And as you know now, many things have gone under the bridge. There is this animal called also broad-based, Mr. Speaker. We want to broaden, deepen, and tighten this relationship, Mr. Speaker. If I may borrow your words, we want to broaden, deepen it, and tighten it, Mr. Speaker, so that we can have a country that is cohesive, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, there is no way we are going to have this animal in place, and then when we want to become the majority, people look at us with suspicious eyes. How can it be, Mr. Speaker? Members of Parliament are members of Parliament. They work under the Article 95 of the Constitution, which has given them the roles of oversight, legislation, and representation, Mr. Speaker. We are not going to do our business outside Article 95, Mr. Speaker. So I want to allay fears here that the majority in the House must be from the ruling party. That this ruling is giving us posterity. This is doing things for posterity, Mr. Speaker. Next election or the other election in 2032, a government might come in place where the president garners the majority votes and is elected as the president, but he will not have numbers in Parliament. His numbers might be few in Parliament and he becomes a minority. So this is now the trend we are setting, that Parliament is independent, judiciary is independent, executive is independent. We have no problem with the executive to do their work, and we know the President of the Republic of Kenya as of today is Honorable William Samoei Ruto, Mr. Speaker. There is no doubt about that. So there should be no ambiguity and doubt that the majority leader in the National Assembly is Honorable Juliet Mohammed, the Member of Parliament for Sunnis, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker. And I am going to serve the country diligently, Mr. Speaker, without any fear and favor, Mr. Speaker. I am a Christian. I am serving my third term in Parliament, Mr. Speaker. I know how Parliament operates. I know how Parliament does its work, and I understand how bills are done in this Parliament, Mr. Speaker. I have gained enough experience. So this mindset,
Wind up,
Mr. Speaker, this mindset that
So I just
the
got my
ruling
nails
party
done,
must have
and
majority in
honestly,
Parliament
I am
for
so
them to do the
upset. I am
executive work of
furious,
the
like,
country, Mr.
and
Speaker.
understand
That
why
mindset must be gotten rid
ring
of,
on this
Mr.
thing.
Speaker.
So I
We
just got
must
my nails
emulate
done,
democracies that have
and
matured over
honestly,
200
I am
years,
so
Mr. Speaker.
upset. I am furious,
In
like,
the
and
last
understand why
election, I mean
ring
in
on
the
this
last
thing.
administration of Biden in America, Mr. Speaker,
Wind up.
the Republican Party was controlling the House, Mr. Speaker, and the Democratic Party was controlling the Senate, and life was going on as usual, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, my advice to the House and to Parliament in general is that the only solution to this problem is to go to appeal. Until the appeal overturns this matter, I shall be recognized as the majority leader of the Republic of Kenya. Mr. Speaker, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. With those remarks, I conclude.
Kainan, order, honorable members, before order Wanjala. Order. In all civilized parliaments, when you appreciate a point, you thumb your foot. You don't stand up and throw your hands in the air. Kainan, before you take the floor, let's have some ground rules. Everybody are given an opportunity to speak. Can we do 3 minutes? Is that good enough? Everybody are given an opportunity, we do 3 minutes. I want 3 minutes. Let's also observe decorum. 3 minutes. Honorable Robert Mbui and Honorable Mwenje. If it is making a point, you have made your point. It is beneath your dignity to continue standing there while the matters are going on. Kainan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this is luckily.
Order. Let's hear each other in silence.
Mr. Speaker, this
If
is
you really want to get a reasoned ruling from the Speaker, let's hear each other. Kainan, give to Kainan.
Mr. Speaker, this is the House of Rules. This is the House of Traditions. This is a house that enjoys being a quasi-judicial institution. Mr. Speaker, on the face of it, I want to take this opportunity to welcome my colleagues to this very important session and say that the Kenyan people outside there are really looking upon us to deliberate in a civilized manner and guide this nation. Mr. Speaker, there comes a time when there are issues that must be deliberated and agreed upon. And I want to agree one thing with my brother Junet, that you are qualified even to be the president of the Republic of Kenya, not even the majority leader alone. Mr. Speaker, having said this, there are certain things that we must clear and follow the procedures, and it's only the procedures that will guide us. Mr. Speaker, if you look at the order paper today, the next order paper, order number 8, is supposed to provide for the appointment of members of the House Business Committee, which is the anchor committee for the House Business, Mr. Speaker. But we cannot reach there until certain issues are sorted out, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, now that we can discuss the appointment under this order number 8, I want to seek your guidance on the following. Mr. Speaker, it's apparent that the High Court last week has quashed the ruling contained in the Speaker's communication dated 6 October 2022 on the majority and the minority. That is a fact. It cannot be denied. Mr. Speaker, secondly, I had a chance to go through this great ruling. I've internalized, I've looked at it, I've seen what it means, I've seen what in the letter and interpretation of this, what the Speaker in the House is generally expected to do. Mr. Speaker, on the face of it, there are certain, the petitioner sought the following declaration to be issued that Azimio La Umoja One Kenya coalition is the majority party in the National Assembly based on the outcome of the general elections of the based on the outcome of the elections of members of the National Assembly held on 9th August. The second, Mr. Speaker, prayers was the declaration be issued to declare that Kenya Kwanza Alliance is a minority party in the National Assembly. Mr. Speaker, if you look at the orders given, even under order number 4, it's a bit confusing. It is not explicit. It doesn't say this. The court declined. They quashed the Speaker's ruling, but did not give proper guidance on what constitutes the majority and the minority. Mr. Speaker, from
give him 1 minute.
It is clear, Mr. Speaker, the court quashed the ruling of the majority and the minority, but never answered the question on how this later on is going to be arrived in the House, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this means we are back to square one where we were when this parliament started. We are back to square one, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, unless this question is determined, we are staring at a crisis. Mr. Speaker, I say this because standing order,
yes.
Standing order 171, I'm on a point of order, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Wanjala. What's your point of order? Give him the mic. Give Wanjala the mic. There you are.
Mr. Speaker, courts are arbiters. And when they have given orders or declarations, it's up to the institution to implement. It is not debated.
Order,
you have seen the ruling of the court.
Order, Wanjala. Order. Order, Wanjala. I don't know whether, have you even read that judgment? Have you read that judgment? Kainan, wind up.
Trying to say that unless this question pursuant to Standing Order 171 is determined, we are facing a crisis, and this crisis can only be sorted out with a proper guidance from the Speaker. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, what I'm trying to say is this: this state of affairs, Mr. Speaker, portends a crisis for the House, Mr. Speaker,
There's
and
no
therefore
crisis.
we want your guidance, Mr. Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order 171 on which party is the majority and which party is the minority. Once that is determined, Mr. Speaker, all the other things will flow, Mr. Speaker, and therefore I want to seek your guidance on this.
Osoro.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, he's occupying our space, Mr. Speaker. Why can't they just move to their side?
Order. Order, Robert Mbui. Order, Robert Mbui. If you listen to me carefully, Robert Mbui, order members. And I want you to listen to this carefully. Order members. Order. I did say Robert Mbui, and you are misconducting yourself. You are too senior to be told to leave the chamber. I did say, and I want to repeat, and Emilio Odhiambo, who raised the point, has read this judgment clearly. The judgment quashed the direction of the Speaker on the majority. Not the court to declare the majority. It is the Speaker of this House. And you better know that. It is the Speaker of the House to declare the majority. Robert Mbui gone. Not Osoro.
Okay. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I want to speak it up from what you've actually said, Honorable Speaker. That even upon reading the judgment of the court, the standing orders of this House, Honorable Speaker, gives you power to declare who is the majority and who is the minority. We appreciate the judgment of the court as it is. We are ventilating about the judgment. We respect the courts. But again, it is these very laws that govern as Honorable Speaker that give you that power as Honorable Speaker to declare the majority and minority. So even as Honorable Junet and the Honorable Millie Odhiambo, Honorable Speaker, live on rented space, they should know that the final declaration of majority and minority comes from your seat, Honorable Speaker. But even then, Honorable Speaker, perhaps we should ponder and ask ourselves these very pertinent questions. In the past 2 years that we've served in this House, Honorable Speaker, we've served in these capacities, as it were, on who is the majority and who is the minority, Honorable Speaker. Several decisions have been made. We have formations of the committees that fall on the majority, minority, chairman, the committees that are supposed to be led by members from the majority side, and the committees that are led by the members of the minority side. Does it mean, Honorable Speaker, that every decision that has been passed by the committees, or any report that has been passed by the committee that falls on the minority, as it were then, and the majority, is it rendered mute as it is right now, Honorable Speaker? If going by the judgment, if we read on the judgment, like they want us to define it as it, just on plain paper, Honorable Speaker, that is question one. Question two that we should ask ourselves, Honorable Speaker. Right now, the selection panel, Honorable Speaker, of the IEBC that was nominated by both the minority parties or the Parliamentary Service Commission, that minority party brought the membership, the majority party brought the membership. The IEBC selection panel has already started working, Honorable Speaker, right now in terms of selecting the next commissioners. What then happens to them? What happens to that selection panel? Because they were appointed on the basis of the majority and the minority when the Parliamentary Service Commission submitted the names. Those are the questions we need to ask ourselves, Honorable Speaker. The Commission for Revenue Authority, Honorable Speaker, that again is a preserve of both the minority and the majority. Honorable Speaker, what then happens on the decisions that have been made 2 years, the allowances that have been paid, Honorable Speaker, the travels that have been made, everything that we've passed, Honorable Speaker, in this house? Those are the questions that we need to ask ourselves, because we are the midterm of this Parliament, Honorable Speaker. Even as you retire to make this your ruling, Honorable Speaker, it is important for us, Honorable Speaker, to ask ourselves those very pertinent questions, because we shouldn't just be.
Okay. Thank you, Osoro. Give him a minute.
Honorable Speaker, you see, we shouldn't just be talking about positions on who is the minority, who is the majority leader. And as Honorable Junet as well put it, we are all members of Parliament and we can serve in whatever capacity. But let's look at the implications of this decision, Honorable Speaker. What happens to what we've passed in the past 2 years? What happens to the right decisions that are leading this country in the past 2 years, Honorable Speaker? What happens to the IEBC selection panel? Those are the questions. Otherwise, I'll tell my colleagues, the Honorable Millie Odhiambo, who is saying that she has added in her CV the position of the chief whip of the majority. She'll only do that, Honorable Speaker, in her dreams. It will not work. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
David Ocheng.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the 3 judges.
Order, honorable members, can we listen to each other?
I want to thank
Save David Ocheng's time. Order, members. Order. Order, members on their feet. Take your seats. Honorable members, I have given you guidance and I want to repeat. The upshot of the judgment of the court, in law we say, we go back to the status quo ante. Status quo ante. When you go back to the status quo ante, then the House has to make a decision and a finding on who the majority is. The court has not declared any party a majority in this House. Read the judgment carefully. Don't speak from what you are hearing in the air. That is number one. Number two, order, Wanjala. I'm just giving you guidance so that you don't speak irrelevantly. We have gone back to the status quo ante. Convince the House as to its majority, the Speaker will make a finding. On a fact. David Ocheng.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the 3 judges for their judgment of last week, Mr. Speaker. We got a new constitution that we keep testing and that keeps guiding us on how we run our affairs as a country, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, under the law we passed in this parliament on coalition making, Mr. Speaker, it is presumed that there will be coalitions, people will leave coalitions, some will enter coalitions, Mr. Speaker, and so it is presupposed that in any term of parliament, Mr. Speaker, one side will be a minority today, tomorrow that side may be a majority, because this is a moving target, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as to who is minority or majority, it's not cast in stone, and therefore the finding by the court, the Speaker, that the decision on who is majority and minority in the 13th Parliament, it was decided on 8th of August 2022 is wrongful, Mr. Speaker. I disagree with it because, Mr. Speaker, today, if Ford Kenya and ANC that was left Kenya Kwanza, Mr. Speaker, and joined Azimio, Azimio will have more members than the remaining UDM, Mr. Speaker. And in that regard, Azimio will be the majority party, Mr. Speaker, and will be called upon to make the decision as Speaker, and will decide as so. So I disagree with the judge's finding that the decision on who is majority and minority was made once. It cannot be made once. It depends on the facts of the day in this house. If, for example, tomorrow I'll be heard, I'm sure I'm going to be heard. I'm sure I'm going to be heard. I will be heard, Mr. Speaker. Because, Mr. Speaker, if today in Azimio, if Wiper left and Jubilee left and UDM left, Mr. Speaker, Azimio will have only ODM with 85 members, Mr. Speaker. It will be a minority. So the decision on who is minority and majority, Mr. Speaker, moves like a pendulum depending on who has left which coalition. So you cannot tell us that that decision is made once only in the election, Mr. Speaker. And that's why the judges are wrong on this matter, Mr. Speaker. Number two, Mr. Speaker, very important, Mr. Speaker, it's very important to note, Mr. Speaker, that the day you made this decision, Mr. Speaker, the day you decided on this matter, you had facts before you. You had evidence before you telling you that UDM has left Azimio. MDG has left Azimio. UDM, MDG, NCPP, PA, you had those facts before you. You couldn't ignore those facts. You can't ignore them. Even in this, Mr. Speaker, you made a finding, Mr. Speaker, that the courts have not said that Azimio is a majority. The courts have said, go back and decide. And so Azimio must today convince you.
Yes. Morogara, I'll give you. Morogara.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, what you need to decide on is the wording of Article 108 of the Constitution and the Standing Order number 19 of our standing orders. Of importance is the use of the verb to be in that particular article and in that particular standing order. The minority or majority party is the party at that particular moment. And therefore, it is not cast on stone, as the court tried to tell Kenyans, that majority and minority were determined on the election date. The words used, the tense used is, which means from time to time as the issue comes into question. Therefore, the court was wrong, and this is one of the, yes, I respect the decision of the court, but on appeal, we will be arguing that the three judges were wrong because they actually did not take into consideration the use of that verb to be by having it in the present tense, that it is from time to time. And one example I can give is this. As at before the ruling, the majority was the Kenya Kwanza coalition. If the parties like UDA actually left Kenya Kwanza, does it continue to be the majority? No. It loses the status because that is determined from time to time by how many members are in the party or how many members are in a coalition. The court actually overreached when they went to interpret it this way, And we shall be taking these matters on appeal. But today, because the course of action of the 6th of October 2022 is spent, we require from you, Honorable Speaker, you give us another ruling using the verb to be. Present tense is who is the majority and minority today as we speak in Parliament. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Maclap.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want members protect me from these members. So, Speaker, this decision of the court, I find it belated. So, Speaker, for one reason. This decision was based at a freezing point. The freezing point was on August 9, after elections, after what was called pre-election coalition agreements. After the 8th and after we were sworn in, Mr. Speaker, there was again post-election agreements, meaning, Mr. Speaker, that the formation of parliament and the composition of parliament and in terms of parties and coalitions is a moving average. Mr. Speaker, it's a moving average that will be determined by interests of members of parliament and the parties that form that particular coalition, Mr. Speaker. You are aware, Mr. Speaker, during your determination, at that time, Mr. Speaker, parties like Jubilee had some members moving to Kenya Kwanza. There were some members, Mr. Speaker, UDM had already changed the position, Mr. Speaker. So even if Wamunyora have changed their position now, Mr. Speaker, you need to ensure there is a post-election agreement, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, what we are determining, Mr. Speaker, is a fundamental thing that will guide Parliament for many years. Mr. Speaker, we must determine how many post-election coalition agreements that shall continue to be there to guide the majority and minority in Parliament, Mr. Speaker. In that way, Mr. Speaker, we shall have Parliament that are made of people who are very sober, that they know where they are and where they sit, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in a parliamentary system, Mr. Speaker, it doesn't matter where you sit here in Parliament. It is only a tradition. It is only a tradition, Mr. Speaker. But in terms of determination, Mr. Speaker, of minority party or majority party rests on your case, Mr. Speaker, and rests on existing post-election agreements that have continued to be there, Mr. Speaker. So it is over to you, Mr. Speaker. Based on those, Mr. Speaker, this is a continuous moving average and it will continue to change, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Donya.